My manager once told me, in front of the entire team, "You're not paid to think outside your job description." So I stopped. And within 11 days, the department he was so proud of completely fell apart. Okay, so for context, I worked as a logistics coordinator at a mid-sized distribution company. On paper, my job was simple: track shipments, update the system, flag delays. That's it. That's what my contract said. But anyone who's worked an office job knows that's never actually it. Over the 3 years I'd been there, I'd quietly absorbed a dozen extra responsibilities nobody assigned me. I trained new hires because nobody else had the patience. I fixed the shipment tracking spreadsheet every time it broke because I was the only one who understood the formulas. I covered for the receptionist during her lunch. I answered client emails on weekends because our official support hours were a joke. None of this was in my job description. I just did it because the alternative was watching things catch fire. Enter my new manager. Let's call him Derek. Derek got promoted from another branch, and within his first month, he'd built a reputation for being the kind of guy who measured his own competence by how strict he could be with everyone else's. The incident that set everything off was almost funny in how small it was. A client called in a panic about a shipment, and I jumped in to help even though it technically belonged to another coordinator who was out sick. I rerouted it, called the warehouse, smoothed it over. Crisis averted. I told Derek about it afterward, expecting maybe a good job. Instead, he called me into his office and said, and I'm quoting this as closely as I can remember, "I appreciate the initiative, but I need you to stay in your lane. You're not paid to handle other people's accounts. Stick to your job description. That's true for everyone on this team starting now." He then sent a team-wide email. Subject line, "Role clarity moving forward." The email said verbatim that all employees should focus exclusively on the duties outlined in their official job description and that informal task sharing was creating accountability gaps. I read that email 3 times. Then I smiled for the first time in weeks. So I pulled up my actual job description, printed it, highlighted every single line item, and I followed it. Exactly. To the letter. Nothing more. Day 1. A new hire came to my desk asking how the tracking spreadsheet worked, since the woman who usually trained people was busy. I smiled and said, "That's outside my role. You'll probably want to check with Derek on who's responsible for training." She did. Derek didn't know the spreadsheet existed. Day 3. The tracking spreadsheet broke. Naturally, it always broke. I just usually fixed it before anyone noticed. This time, I logged the issue, exactly as my job description required, and moved on. I did not fix it. By the end of the day, nobody could track a single shipment in the building. Day 5, the receptionist went on her lunch break, and nobody covered the desk, because covering the desk had never been my job. I'd just always done it. Calls went to voicemail. 2 clients complained about not being able to reach anyone for 4 hours. Day 7, a client emailed me directly on a Saturday, panicking about a delayed shipment, the way they always did, because I'd trained them to expect a Saturday reply. I did not reply. My job description said nothing about weekend hours. Monday morning, that client had escalated to Derek's boss, furious that nobody at the company answers emails. By day 9, Derek's role clarity policy had produced exactly 4 things: a broken tracking system nobody could read, 2 angry clients threatening to leave, an untrained new hire who'd started rerouting shipments to the wrong warehouse, and a very confused VP asking Derek why the department's on-time delivery rate had dropped 12 points in under 2 weeks. Derek called me into his office. He looked like a man who hadn't slept. "I don't understand what happened," he said. "Everything was running fine before." I just shrugged and said, "I've been following my job description exactly like you asked. I didn't want to create any more accountability gaps." He stared at me for a long moment. I watched him do the math in real time. Watched him realize that the smooth-running department he'd inherited hadn't been smooth because of good systems. It had been smooth because of me, quietly doing 5 jobs that weren't mine, for free for years. To his credit, Derek didn't try to spin it. He sat back, rubbed his face, and said, "Okay, what would it take for you to go back to doing what you were doing before?" I told him a title that actually reflected what I did: a raise that reflected the title, and, this was the important part, written acknowledgement that the extra work was voluntary and compensated, not an unspoken expectation anyone could yank away on a whim. He agreed to all of it within the week. The VP signed off personally, probably just relieved the client complaints would stop. Funny enough, Derek and I actually get along fine now. He learned a lesson the expensive way, that informal task sharing is usually just the polite term for the unpaid glue holding your department together. And I learned that sometimes the most effective thing you can do at a job that's taking advantage of you is exactly what they ask. If you've ever had a boss find out the hard way how much you were actually doing, let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, the next one might be worse.